Hello, hello, hello. So yesterday I was talking about how I myself am afraid. And what I mean by that is I'm not trembling. And so I don't mean like, oh no, I'm shaking right now in this moment. But I try to make sure that I watch myself and I try to make sure that I watch my actions. And so if I observe the way that I live my life and the things that I do daily and my habits, my speech, and even my thoughts, there's something that I'm missing. I'm not living properly. So it comes back to, well, for what reason? Why am I not living well? Why am I not living in the kingdom of heaven? As in, why is this life not everything I could be? Why am I not everything I could be? So it does come back to things like desire, fear. I'm being pulled in a direction because I'm afraid of something. And so because I'm afraid of it, I'm trying to avoid it. Or I desire something. And because there's something that I desire, I'm pulled in that direction and still I'm afraid of losing it. So the way that I'm trying to live right now is to operate in a way where each day is better than the last. So today needs to be better than yesterday. Yesterday was not perfect, but it was better than the day before. And already today is better than yesterday. So if I can keep that same pattern up, then life will be good. Not only will I be in the kingdom of God in the future, but by the way I'm living today, I'll be in the kingdom of God today. So now we're at chapter 11 of Genesis. This is the Tower of Babel. And it's an interesting story. The Tower of Babel leads into Abram, and so we're going to go from the Tower of Babel to mm, Abram's story, where Abram gets involved. So I'm gonna read this, and then it's kind of confusing. I did research on it because I didn't really know what it was getting at. So I'm just gonna read it first, and we'll go from there. And the whole earth was one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the west that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, "Go, let us make brick, burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and slime had they for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach onto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Adding the stream. There we go. That's what I'm reading. And they said, go, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach into heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore, the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old. All right, so one quick change is I'm not going to read these generations. I'm just going to say what's relevant about it. Shem is Noah had three sons, if you remember. Shem or Ham was the youngest one who essentially betrayed Noah. Shem was one of the older ones, and Abraham is of Shem's generation. So all of these names are just to tell you that Abraham comes from Shem. And Abraham, now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. So now Abram, who becomes Abraham, his name starts off with Abram. Abram, his father is Terah, and then he has a brother as well, but his brother dies, and so his brother's son Lot is traveling around with him. So they've got a small family, and their dad is the patriarch, and he's leading everything. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abraham and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren; she had no child. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, Abraham's wife, and they went forth to Chaldees, or from Ur of the Chaldees, to go into the land of Canaan. And when they came into Canaan, they dwelt there. And in the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So now Abram's father, Terah, is leading the family, and he dies. So what's relevant there, obviously, is to go back to the story of Babel. It's interesting because we have some good things happening where human beings are unified. They have one speech. And they're all building a city together. They figure out brick and mortar. So they've got bricks, and they're burning them to create mortar, and the slime for the mortar. So long story short, they have a city that's becoming successful. So the first time I read that, my thoughts were, why did God crash the city? What would be the point of him crashing the city? If here human beings are finally being successful, he started off by flooding the city because of how corrupt and wicked they are. Now here they are being unified, working together, extremely positive. And what he says is, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Let us go down and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. And so the Lord scattered them abroad from the face of the earth. So again, they're working together, but God comes down and scatters them because they're working together. So you read that and it's like, well, now God is the antagonist to humans. They're finally doing what's right, and he's needlessly or randomly creating more chaos in their world, seemingly for no reason. But then you think about it further, and you digest it further, and think about the context. And one of the key things that's said here is, and they said one another, go, let us make brick, burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to build a tower to the heavens. So it doesn't really make sense to build a tower to the heavens if you're trying to live under God. So they're trying to be like God, and they're trying to bring forth everything that they can imagine. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. So the thoughts of man are corrupt, and if you don't intentionally live through God and walk with God, the highest good, you're going to inevitably drift off into chaos and drift off into corruption and wickedness. It'll start by your thoughts and your desires, and then it'll bleed into your speech, and you'll start to tell lies via pride. You'll be prideful. Again, they're trying to reach up to the heaven and be like God. And then you'll act horrible. And the issue is that, again, nothing will be restrained from them. And so if it gets to a point where they're acting so horrible and it's so much chaos. God is going to have to flood the earth again, but he said that he's not going to flood the earth again. And so rather than let them build this tower and do the things that they're aiming to do, he sees what's forthcoming and he just squashes it right there. And so they never get to build the tower the way that they want to, or that they're trying to do, rather. And it's not antagonistic on God's part. It's what must be done. Because again, if you would intentionally build the altar, if the first thing that you would do would be to build the altar, and then be intentional about worshiping God on that altar, then everything positive will flow from that. But the moment that you let that go, the moment you take the highest good out of your mind, everything devolves into chaos. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will shew thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy great name, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed, and as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. So he doesn't leave. His dad passes away when his dad is very old in age, obviously. And so he doesn't even leave the specific age doesn't matter, obviously. Just what matters is he lives with his father. Terah is the patriarch and the leader of the household. And Abram doesn't really do anything with his life until his father passes away. And so there's an idea that I think it's a quote, but you can't fully become a man until your father dies. But that death can be spiritual. And so Abram's following Terah, which you should if you're a child, but he follows him up until all the way through manhood. He keeps following him rather than acknowledge that, hey, my father is a human just like I am. I'm grateful that he raised me as a child, but now that I'm a man, I must do my own thing. I must go my own way. And so it takes the actual death of his father to do that. He doesn't do it he doesn't let his father die in a metaphorical way. And that ultimately leads him to this place. And Abram passed through the land unto the space of Shechem, unto the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. So again, the very first thing that he does as he gets to this new land with Sarai and Lot and his family is build an altar. So the same thing that Noah did right when he got off the ark is build an altar. The human beings in Babel did not build an altar. What they built was not an altar. They're trying to build a tower that would reach up to God. So again, the key is to be intentional about going towards the highest good. And if you lose that intention, we lose it at our own peril. And we're going to degenerate via thought, speech, and action. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed I will give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west, and Hai on the east. And there he built an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on still the south. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. All right, so Abram and his family are living at the land where God had promised them. He builds an altar there, and after he builds the altar, God says, "This will be your land for you and your generations." But then he gets hit with a famine in that land, and so they're forced out in order to eat, and they travel to Egypt. So now they're going to Egypt. And it came to pass when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, "Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they'll kill me, but they will save thee alive. So I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee." So Abram is married to Sarai, and he's asking Sarah or Sarai at this point. They changed their names, they evolve. So he's asking Sarai to say, "You're my sister," rather than my wife, because they're going into Egypt, and Sarai is very beautiful. And so he's under the impression that they're going to try to see how beautiful she is and then take her and kill him so that they can't take her. So he says, "Hey, tell them that you're my sister, and then they will treat me well because you're my sister, and they'll also treat you well. That way we can both live." So that's kind of a strange thing, obviously, because that's his wife. And then it doesn't really turn out well. I don't think that's the right decision. I think he was well-intentioned behind what he was trying to do. But Abram is a very early character of the Bible. And so I say that because he's not, as the characters go forward, they become more sophisticated and more articulate, like all of this is. As in, we're early in the Bible right now, and I'm not very good at articulating this. But as it goes forward, I become more articulate and more sophisticated and more cohesive in the things I'm trying to say. And that's the same thing as a human being's personality. And so Abram is kind of like I wouldn't say he's a prophet, but he's in the realm of the main characters of the Bible. But he's kind of bumbling around. He had his dad, Terah, and he relied on Terah up until way too long. He should have went on his own earlier, I would say, but it all worked out in that regard. And then also he's forced out of Egypt, and again, that's his wife, so you don't really necessarily want to say, "Oh, please say you're my sister just to save my life." For sure, you need to save your life, but it seems like there'd be a better way. And so he doesn't go about things in the right way. And just because it's in the Bible, and just because he's a main character, and just because he does it, doesn't even mean that that's the right thing to do in that situation. And so it comes back to bite him a little bit because of what plays out. And it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. The princes also of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abram very well for her sake. And he had sleep and oxen, and he had asses and men servants and maidservants, and she asses and camels. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is that thou hast done unto me? Why did thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why did you say, She is my sister? So that I may have taken her to me to my wife. Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go away." And Pharaoh commended his men concerning him, and they had sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had. And so that of course is where it backfires. So Pharaoh likes Sarai, she's a beautiful woman. He even calls her into his palace, takes her as one of his wives, or maybe his only wife. And then because he is doing a quote unquote adulterous act, he essentially gets cursed by God. And then he's confused and he's like, well, I thought this was a beautiful woman. I mean, you told me it was your sister. Why'd you do that? And so then he kicks him out of there, rightfully so. So now they got kicked out of Egypt, but they still had the things that they gained in Egypt. And Abram went out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that they had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle and silver and in gold. And he went on his journeys from the south even to Bethel, on to the place where his tent had been from the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. So Abram and Lot, again, Lot is Abram's nephew, have now both become fairly wealthy in gold, silver, and livestock and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abram said unto thee, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will take the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will take the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all of the plain of Jordan, and it was well watered. Everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou cometh into Zor. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. All right, so basically what's happening here is Abram is they're fighting because they're way too close to each other, and the herdsmen get into a fight. And what Abram does is he goes up to Lot and he says, this is interesting because it's along the same lines of building an altar being the first thing that you do. The highest good being maintained is the most important thing in life. So Lot is obviously his nephew, and so that's his family. And that's the most important thing. And he doesn't want to ruin that relationship. So he's like, all right, we're fighting trivially, and there's really nothing more important than this relationship and you as my brethren. And so there's two things that he could do right here, Abram. Maybe more than, well, there's more than two things, but there's two main things he could do. He could do what he did, or he could say, all right, Lot, you're way too close to me. And because you're so close to me, this is an absolute disaster. I'm kicking you out. This is all of my land. And then maybe Lot's like, no, this is actually all my land. And they go to war. And then that's the type of thing that causes the earth to flood and the Tower of Babel to get scattered because of the pure chaos and war that gets brought in. But rather than go down that pathway, even in the way that he's speaking, you can tell that he is urgent to get this corrected. He says, separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And so Abram's not trying to dominate Lot. He's literally saying, we do, for the highest good, we have got to separate, and I will do whatever is necessary. I just care about you. I care about I care about the well-being of what we're trying to do here. I care about you. I don't want to lose a family member. I don't want to go into strife. If you want to go to the left, then I'll take the lane to the right. If you want to go to the right, I'll take the lane to the left. Whatever you want to do, I will be on board with it. I just want to make sure that we can ultimately do what is right and maintain our relationship. Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as to the dust of the earth, so that a man can number the dust of the earth. Then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Then Abram removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. So the same situation, he gets into this new spot, and the very first thing that he does is build an altar for the Lord, for the highest good, so that he can continue his worship. All right, so now we're getting into chapter 14, and this is where the world is again at risk of drifting into chaos, and maybe this isn't actual chaos. This is division and necessary progress through division. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elazar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these were made war with Bera, king of Sodom, with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemember, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zor. All these were joined together in the Vale of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him. And they smote the Rephaims in Asheroth, Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Emims in Shavi Kirathim, and the Horites in the Mount Seir unto Elparan, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and smote all the country, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazezon Tamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the name is Zor, and they joined battle with him in the Vale of Siddim, with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and the Tidal, king of nations, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, 4 kings with 5. All right, so all of that to say, there's a battle in the land separate from, I mean, it affects Lot and Abram, obviously, but greater than their day-to-day lives is a macro issue arising, which is affecting everybody, and there's a war about to break out. And there's 5 cities / kings against 4. And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals and went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, brother of Eshel and brother of Anar, and these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. So the war affects Sodom and Gomorrah, and at the time, that's where Lot is living, in Sodom. And one of Lot's servants escape and goes and tells Abram what's going on. And so Abram gets 318 people that all came from his own house. So 318 trained servants. And then he divided them in half. So he and his servants then at night go and attack them. And then they chase them all the way to Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And so that's what happens there, and then going forward. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot and his goods, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him at the valley of Shavi, which is the king's dale. And king of Salem brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thine hand. And he gave him tithes of all, tithings, essentially. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons, and take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have left up my hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I would not take a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is mine, that is thine, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich, save only that which the young men have eaten in the portions of the men that went with me. Let them take their portion. All right, so Abram goes, attacks them, steals or takes their things, and then he gets praised by the king of the land where he lives. And the king that he destroys comes back to him and says, Give me back my people. You can keep the goods, but I need my people. I need the prisoners of war that you've taken from me. And Abram's response is, Oh yeah, I'm going to give you your people back. And not only am I going to give you your people, I'm going to give you everything that I took from you as well. Because what I'm not going to have happen here is that I don't need you to say that you made me rich by me robbing you. And so the reason why I attacked you is because you had my brother Lot, and that's why, or my nephew Lot. So that's why I had to attack you to get him back. But I'm not going to rob you. That way you can just tell everybody that my life success comes from robbing you, meaning you made me rich. And so that is where Lot gets saved. And then going forward, we're going to make it to Sodom and Gomorrah tomorrow. And so there's a lot of chaos, obviously, that happens in Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah is one of the more popular stories, at least in my mind, of the Bible. And it's a story that I was when I was young specifically, that I was mind blown by it because I didn't understand. It just seemed like absolute hell of Sodom and Gomorrah, that there would be people living in that way in cities. But then you get older and you realize, oh, people actually are just beyond corrupt. When people get into big groups, they become disassociated from accountability, and then they can kind of do whatever they want. So tomorrow we're going to get into Sodom and Gomorrah. Today we're going to, and going forward, this is the King James version of the Bible that I'm reading here. And that's why it's got all of these names in here that can't read. But when I read the Bible, I have a NIV version. And so it doesn't have the names like that. And so what I'm going to do, I like the King James version better, except for the names aspect. It's trivial and superfluous. So tomorrow I'm going to do both of them. I'm going to have both of them up. That way I don't have to read the names because it's a disaster. But there is a day ahead. We have to live today that makes tomorrow better than yesterday. We have to live today that makes tomorrow better than yesterday. When we do that, the kingdom of heaven can exist not only tomorrow in our future, but it can exist